Tel Aviv, Israel. The CIA chief flew Europe on Monday to meet with Israeli and Qatari officials, raising the possibility of new ceasefire and a deal release hostages in Gaza in U.S. defense. The secretary spoke with Israeli military leaders about reducing major combat operations against Hamas. Still, after more than 2 months of devastating ardment and fighting, there was no sign that a change in the war was imminent. Violence took place in northern Gaza. Residents of area said that rescue teams were searching for dead and living under buildings destroyed by Israeli attacks. Pressure is mounting as France, Britain and Germany, some of Israel's closest allies, joined calls for a global ceasefire over the weekend. Israeli protesters demanded that the government restart talks with Hamas over the release of more hostages after 3 hostages were mistakenly killed by Israeli soldiers while waving a white flag. U.S. officials have repeatedly expressed concern about the deaths of large numbers of civilians in Gaza. But after a meeting with Israeli officials on Monday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, "This is Israel's operation. I am not here to dictate timelines or terms." The U.S. vetoed ceasefire calls at the UN and sent ammunition to Israel. The UN Security Council postponed until Tuesday a vote on an Arab-backed resolution calling for a cessation of hostilities to allow unhindered access to humanitarian aid. Diplomats said negotiations were ongoing for the United States to abstain or vote yes on the resolution. The war killed more than 19,000 Palestinians and destroyed much of the north, turning it into a moonscape. Hostage conversations. A U.S. official said CIA Director William Burns meeting in Warsaw with head of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency and the Prime Minister of Qatar was a clear sign that talks on hostage deal were getting serious. It was trio's first known meeting since the end of a week-long ceasefire late November, when about 100 hostages, including some foreign nationals, were released in exchange for release of about 240 Palestinians held Israeli prisons. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the talks were not at a point where another agreement is imminent, aiming to increase public pressure on Israeli government. Hamas released a video showing 3 elderly Israeli hostages dressed in white t-shirts begging Israel for the immediate release of hostages. These comments were likely made under duress, but the video signaled that Hamas wanted to move on to discussions about releasing sick and elderly men in captivity. Israel said it wanted the release of about 19 women and 2 children first. Hamas says women include soldiers who are expected to demand higher wages in exchange for the release of detainees. An estimated 129 captives are still held by Hamas and other militants. Hamas has said no more hostages will be released until the war is over. Minimizing the war. Austin, who came Israel with Chief of Staf